Alright, we should be live now. Yes. So, the plan for today. I'm going to make this into a cylinder and then carve into it flowers and vines and things like that. So I'm just going to mark myself a... I don't really care right now that the drawing I'm making is a very rough circle because the first cylinder I carve will mostly disappear when I start carving the details, engraving the details into it later. So it's more of a basic guide that won't remain important throughout. This is going to be a much more freeform project than the previous ones. Much more laid back. I mostly want to practice engraving and making small details. The final result is not as predefined as usual. So I'm going to first make a V that joins with... to do the corners near the drawing, and then I'm going to go back on both sides. I'm going to do this corners, and then I'm going to smooth it out afterwards. This is a kind of project that I probably should have waited to purchase wood that was already cylindrical, but I didn't know I was going to do this kind of project, so I didn't purchase any, and well, I wanted to do this, so, and I didn't have time to go out and try to find the right dimension of cylinder pieces of carving wood and wait for them to arrive if it's through Amazon, because I tried to look locally when I was trying to when I was first planning on doing carving in general, and there isn't much option that I could find for what exactly for purchasing wood meant for carving. I mean, the hardware stores have planks of woods and stuff for construction work, but not specifically for wood carving. And even the local art shop, well, not local art shop, but the nearby art-oriented shop, which has most kinds of art presented, like they have for painting, for drawing, for calligraphy, for pottery, for all kinds of different work. And they do have things like wood carving knives, but not the wood, and some pieces of wood, but not smaller pieces. They're more meant, the pieces of wood they're selling are more meant for big projects and big that the kind of projects that right now I can't really justify trying to do with my current, where I am with my current skill level and work ethic. I mean, I'm not going to be working a whole week. I'm not going to be working that long on a project right now, since I'm trying to practice and get myself some confidence in what I'm doing. I'm not going to splurge on a large piece of wood that I'm going to be stuck trying to work for probably months. Eventually, probably, but not right now. That's not where I'm at right now. Well, and making a cylinder is somewhat a challenge since I'm going to try to make a smooth surface that's consistent throughout the entire length of the block. That's going to be a different type of challenge that will also help my practice. So this both practices my ability to shape, to make consistent shapes, and then my ability to make details. So it's a really good project for practice, I think. It seems the initial shaping is going to be a bit more of a challenge than I expected. The it's kind of a hard it's kind of hard to hold the block of wood without my fingers being in the way and still remove the wood on the middle of the block. It's a bit of an awkward position to hold it all in. It Since I'm using the whole length of the block, it's still I still have plenty to hold, but it's not as nice of a hold as I was planning. Well, not planning, but expecting. I think once I've blunted all of the big corners, it's going to be easier. Because now they kind of dig into my hand slightly. What's happening? Encoding overloaded. Consider turning down the video setting or using a faster encoding preset. What does that mean? There's everything froze for a bit there. I'm sorry, I don't. Huh. Yeah, there is definitely a problem with the recording. I don't know what I can do about it. I'm going to have to look it up later because right now, because there was a very big freeze that I noticed. I don't know when it started, but it was very significant as far as I could tell from the preview I have. And it was on the side of the recording, not on the side of YouTube, it seems. So maybe it's my computer that doesn't have the correct type of circuitry to make recordings, maybe. Yeah. Seems it's a systematic problem with my stream, so I'm going to have to look up what I can do. Maybe I just selected the wrong settings when setting up the my OBS. This is for some reason this portion is really splintering a lot. I don't know why. Previous times the recording went back up. The error message fell down at some point naturally, so I'm going to hope it does the same thing here. Then I don't have to. And the last times it seemed fine afterwards. Well, there were problems and jumps and things, but it was still watchable, I think. So we're going to hope it's the same principle right now, and I'm not going to have to shut it down prematurely. Sorry. It may be a while before I find the solution to the problem with the recording and streaming, since I don't know much about computers, so whatever they tell me I should do, there is a risk that I don't find the correct things to change. Like I don't know what it will when I look it up what the things I see recommend me, but because I don't have the expertise and the much experience in computers, the structures of computers, I may not understand the problem enough to properly describe it when looking it up on Google. So there will be a lot of trials and tribulations to go through before I manage it. Right, why is this splintered that much? Alright. This is far from a smooth surface, but it's probably going to be as good as I'm going to be able to make it right now. And since this surface isn't really that important in the grand scheme of what I'm going to be trying to do on it, I'm probably going to stop working on it fairly soon. With the amount of detail work I'm going to try to put into it, if I want to be able to do it all in this stream, I'm going to need to be careful not to overwork my surface pre-detailing. I described it as an overgrown pillar, but it's probably going to be an overgrown stump of some kind more, because so I guess I'm going to be making, so I want to make the bottom of the pillar have a grass portion. So here I'm going to be making a grass texture when I'm close to finished. Then I'm going to make a vine that wraps around and zigzags on the corner. It's kind of hard to keep a consistent thickness with the surface being that rough. But I'm going to make do. Right, so this would be a vine with branches that spiral a bit. Here and there. Right, this is the first vine, then probably going to want another one from here, goes on the opposite direction. Keeps on going most of the way. I'm trying to make these somewhat random to help the feel of the final product. So here it's fine. And another one here. going to add the final vine. Let us start from here, cross this one, and go back up. Thinner here. And then near the first vine. Alright. And this one will also have its small spiral branches. And then on those vines I want to add small leaves. I'm going to alternate them a bit and space them as I go. Small leaves. I don't know what kind of vine this is. I don't really care about accuracy to a known plant. So here there'd be a flower. So the main vines will have leaflets and the branches will have flowers. I guess that's the look I'm going for right now. This one will have a flower on the tippy top. Big branch with 3 flowers, I guess. And then the leaves. This is probably the kind of project that I would have liked to add paint afterwards to really make the difference between the leaves and the flowers stand out. But I don't want to paint on my current setup. So if I ever paint it, it's going to be probably off stream and recorded to add as an addendum to the commentary of or something like that. Sorry. I may be going overkill with the detail, but that's the whole point of this project, so we'll see what I'm able to do in one stream, and if worse comes to worse, I'm going to have to split it in 2 streams like I did with the logo. Right. And then the flowers on its 2 vines. Alright, this should be fine. When I was planning this project, I was thinking of adding flowers poking out of the grass, but I don't think it's necessary. The vines are plenty. They fill the space more than I anticipated. So that's one of the things that's difficult about planning, is that before I do the initial carving and the initial drawing, it's very hard to figure out how much surface and how much work there'll be in a given project. So now what I want to do is dig a bit deeper all throughout the block, the cylinder. Everywhere that isn't inside the vines and inside the flowers, inside the leaves, I want to recess it into the piece. For that, I think I'm going to use this knife for the tracing. I'm going to try to make partitions that I can then remove by slipping this knife into it, into these grooves. So I like pre-planned the cuttings. And I do want it to be quite deep, because the deeper it is, the more I can afford to round off the vines. Because right now they're going to be straight and they're going to be kind of boring after the initial pass. But the deeper I've managed to make the initial pass, the more room I have to add real texture and volume to the other parts, I think. So let's move it. That's where I... And here I have to be real careful not to damage the portions that I want to keep. I don't know how deep I'm going to want to get, so I'm just going to be as deep as I'm comfortable. And then worst comes to worst, I'm going to have to... the worst thing that can happen is that I'm going to have to do a second pass later of deepening, but this is going to be a start. And I'd say this went well for first part. So now the first challenge of doing it this way, Reset said. Which order do I do which surface? I'm just going to be making lines to connect parts that I think I'm going to make triangles because the first triangle went so well. So I'm going to make, well, rough triangles. I don't need them to be perfect, but it's just to help me portion and choose my battle efficiently. Because I can't trace the entire vine with a knife at once. The knife will slip and it will be problematic, I think. So portioning enough right now will let me be systematic and thorough in the process. So I use this knife for marking my lines because it feels like it has the best leverage and the best angle of point for digging in a thin gouge into the material. A thin mark. A thin but deep mark. I think I'm going to do these marks all the way around right now because this way I'm going to be preserving my lines because in the previous projects I noticed that my glove does remove over time when manipulating the block. My gloves do remove the lines that I trace on the block. So this gives me a clear and permanent image of the lines I've traced with pencil. So I think it's going to be worth it in the long run for this project to go buck wild right now and just pre-plan every cut basically, because that's kind of what this zoning does. It portions and plans my cuts. I don't know if it's a common technique, but it feels right to me right now. I'm going to hope I don't regret it because if I don't like it, well, it's kind of already too late. I kind of just have to trust my own process right now. trying to make sure that my splinters don't, like this flower, I'm going to do an additional line here, because I don't want that by removing the splinter I go over this part and then break the flower unintentionally. So I think it's going to be better to just split this geometry into two parts. I was a bit confused this morning when I opened my YouTube studio to start a live stream. I hit a minor milestone. Basically, I hit the YouTube threshold for channel history. Apparently, it gave me access to new features that I didn't really know exist. Well, no, I knew they existed, but I didn't really try to look up. So I didn't know. I just didn't have access to, like the podcast options, the community posts and things like that. That I didn't realize that they needed more than just having a YouTube channel. Well, they don't ask much more than just a YouTube channel. They need it just needs time for YouTube to be confident that my content is appropriate and for the platform. That I'm not a malicious content creator of some kind. I think that's how I understood the text I had access to for explaining the whole thing. Maybe I can. I just moved my mic slightly because I noticed that I tended to drift that way because when I try to look at the detail closely, I avoid the mic a bit, and it made me drift towards the left of the screen. I've moved my mic a little bit more right, so hopefully that habit is now broken. You'll have to see, but let's hope. I didn't add any flower to that specific branch. I just noticed that. Oh, it's not an issue. I'm not. There's not any rules here. It's kind of a somewhat freeform project, I'd say. Like I didn't even look up any flower to try to replicate or any specific plant. It's just random vines. Alright, so I've accidentally removed a chip there. Well, we can just say the plant has been slightly eaten and leave it at that. I can probably save the shape a bit later, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. Alright. I'm going to start by making this one fully, and I'll see this section fully, and then I'll see what I do for the rest of the block. So I'm going to start removing the planned splinters. So here I'm digging slightly into the line to catch it. All right, so around small details like this, the technique is a bit more difficult to apply, it seems, but it's working well so far, I have to say. The cuts come off easily, they're fairly smooth, and they do the shape I want. The reason I'm doing this, I was saying that I would do the tracing on the old thing before trying to remove the matter. I went back on this decision because I want to make sure that the way I was planning the cuts and preparing them did it was sufficient to. I want to detect issues that might be with my method before I do it for the entire piece, because then it would be too. Once I notice the problem, it would be way too late for me to try to fix it. But now, since I'm doing just one portion, yes, the next portion, if I change the technique, won't be maybe I won't have the same texture, perhaps, but it's going. The hope is that I'm going to be able to refine the method and even with the same shapes be able to achieve a better or easier result. So far, it's the flowers contours that are the biggest issue. They are not as. It's not as easy to catch a splint, to catch my lines near a flower without damaging the flower slightly, it seems. It looks like to get the full depth of the lines I've traced, it's better to go to make 2 passes, one in each direction. So extremely thin portions like this are hard to remove between 2 vines here. They're not. It's not possible to catch the lines from the same type of angles as I've been doing with the larger portions. So I have to get creative in how I hold the knife, in order to reach in between the depth I want in between. Okay. I think I'm comfortable trying to do the same thing on the rest of the surface. That went fairly well. Not perfectly. There were some hiccups along the way. It was a manageable amount of difficulty, I'd say. So let's get to tracing the rest, I guess. So then I think it's going to be troublesome for the more open portions. Like this portion here, it's so open that I don't think the technique will be as helpful. So I'm going to start with... I'm going to leave the portion with the most open surfaces for last, because I think it's going to be more worth my time to do this one to the base. So here, I don't think I always need triangles. I think I mostly need them for when there is a different geometry like a flower. So this, and even then only situationally, probably. So like here, here. I basically don't want to get... I don't think I'll even do triangles that much for this portion. I'll just do different horizontal portioning to ensure that there is never a cutting that goes and does and reaches around to, like here. I don't want a splinter to try to go through the sleeve here, for example. So I'm going to want the separation between my two splittings to be there, so that it can't be a bother. I was doing triangles because that's what felt natural initially. Simply because of well, I know that in video games, for example, the model with many triangles, that's what most graphics are nowadays. So that's what I thought would work best. But now I see that I may have been over splitting my work surface. Maybe. I don't have the same limitations as a computer for displaying graphics. I can just do whatever I want, more or less. The only limitations I have here are the ones I put upon myself, I guess is the nice way to say it. Alright, so here it's kind of hellish to split because there is a petal, a flower petal, and a leaf that are really close by to one another, and as they're, it's probably going to be hard to remove the space in between those two geometries. Not impossible, certainly, but kind of hard, probably. I like this process. It's systematic, relaxing. Well, relaxing maybe not. It's a bit hard to be described as not hard, but a bit too. I don't know what to say. Relaxing is not the right word, but it's not stressful. It's not. I don't have to doubt that much the process when compared to different approaches that I've tried. For the projects, I had to worry a lot more about symmetry and since they were animals, and animals tend to, well, not all of them, but most animals that I can think of on the top of my head tend to be symmetrical, so they can be. So it's a lot more stressful to be trying to do the same thing on all sides of animals. But here it's just a plant that has grown over a tree. It's not. There's not really any need for it to be symmetrical. In fact, I don't want it to be symmetrical because that would feel worse because it wouldn't be as natural, let's say. So I feel a lot more calm and about the process and what I'm doing. I just need to. The lines I traced half about more or less randomly. I didn't bother trying to, this is how no, I just drew and then I went straight to carving without. I don't feel the need to go look at this part that I've already done because it's more or less doesn't matter right now. So I'm able to work more. I'm able to be more on the here and now than I was with, like, say, the shark. The shark, I had to always look at the other side, always look at the bottom, always look at the bigger picture where the fins will go, how deep I need to go for the fins to work, and so on and so forth. But here, I'm just carving. It doesn't matter what I've done previously on this piece of wood. Not really. What's done is done, and I just need to keep on going. And even if I make a mistake, well, since it's a freeform, since there's not as much pressure to look at to reach at a very specific result with it, I don't. Even if I make a mistake, I can just wing it and make a random touch-ups to try and fix it. And it's, if worse comes to worse, that's just going to be the portion that's oriented towards the back. It's not something that has a specific final orientation as much as a beaver and chicken has. Sure, I could put the chicken backwards and so that I look at its back in the presentation if I don't like the face, but then it doesn't look like to do an looker. It wouldn't look like a chicken. It would look like a weirdly shaped potato if we don't see the face. So, but here, well, it's the back and the front is basically the same thing. There's no back and front, so to speak. So I don't need to be as particular about any size. I can have the same tolerance for mistakes everywhere, and this tolerance is small because it's not as fixed a shape as an animal is. Sorry if I'm rambling. I don't always know if my thoughts are if the way I'm describing my thoughts as clear as they are in my head. So they're so I'm just repeating myself and going around in a circle, trying to find a different, slightly better way to shape my thought into speech. And the result is me rambling for a long time. I've tried to keep most of my cuttings, my planned cuttings, in this direction, because that way, if there is a line that I dug too deep, I can just say, oh, that's a bark texture. I don't have to. If I did all of most of the lines in the other direction, then, well, first it would be harder to remove the cuttings, I think, because of the wood grain. But also, it wouldn't. Any remaining lines at the end of the process would not look like anything. They would just be lines, random lines. But here, because the lines are in a direction that bark would be, I can just say, oh, that's a implied bark. They're inbuilt excuses for mistakes. Not that it looks like it's been necessary so far. So far, I haven't really missed a spot that much. So it's not a needed excuse right now. It's just that if it's needed, it's there. I think I may have ruined this vine. The knife slipped under here, and I don't think I'll be able to save that. Maybe if I keep it in mind and try to protect it further, maybe it won't be that bad, but it would be kind of sad to lose this vine because it's in a good position, I feel. But since it's since the slip is near a flower, I won't have to work that much around it, so it might end up being fine. Maybe I'll just add a bit of glue underneath it to solidify it. Off camera, of course. I don't want to force you to watch glue dry. Well, you could always skip it, but why leave something that's always going to be skipped? One of the problem with this technique that I can see right now is that it makes slippage more likely and more destructive, since all the lines I've weakened the wood, sometimes on the other side of a thing that we don't want to cut, and that increases the likelihood that a slippage will be more dramatic in scope. Because the spot at which I'd slipped here, well, that's just a thin portion where there were lines on both sides that weakened it. So it was a place where slippage was likely, and because of those lines, and those lines further guided my knife further into the wood, making the result of the slippage worse than it could have been otherwise. Like, even if the lines I made didn't weaken the wood, making slippage more likely with it, which I think it did, it still would have made it more damaging in the event of a slip by providing guidance to the knife after the slip. I think the leaves may have been mistakes in some cases because it makes the vine a lot more lumpy. It looks like to me, and not as smooth. Because every time there's a leaf, the smooth the line of the vine is interrupted, and it's hard to catch it back up on the other side with the same level of precision. So it thickens and makes the whole thing more lumpy needlessly. Well, no, the leaves are needed. Like, I don't. Well, needed, I don't know. It's not a real plant, so it doesn't matter, but it wouldn't feel right to me if there weren't any leaves at all. It would look weird to me. But the way I've dealt with leaves so far in this project also looks weird to me, so I don't know. Might be something to consider for future projects like this. Well, I say that I don't that the vines look weird to me, but they are mid-process. I'm mostly looking at this one, which is in between the other two vines, so it's the one that is closer to finished, and it doesn't look quite right to me. I think that in the final product, the parts that look weird to me will be not as visible, not as defined, because the rest of the project will be finished. Everything else will be done, and it's going to be deeper. The shape of the vine will be probably a bit refined, but right now, mid-process, it does look slightly strange to me. I have faith it's going to get better, but when and how is a bit of a mystery right now. All right. One more big section to do. I'm just going to go back and retrace the lines because they've faded a lot. And we're just going over the same lines right now. I see that, but I'm going to change a bit this line. The flower was really just two in the center and not... and the vine was basically erased by the presence of the flower. And I'm going to move this flower because it's going to be impossible to do the shape I'd initially planned. Because there's just no space at all between the vine and the flower where it was drawn initially. Alright. The shapes I've already done don't pick up that much on camera, it seems. No, it's fine. It looks slightly better, I think, in real life than with the video, as far as I can tell right now. So I'm going to be cutting here, 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 a few times here. This will be needed right here. So like this, and this is going to be a mess. This should be fine. And then here. Those are my lines I need to trace. I really like this project so far. I'm not certain about the results because it's not done yet, but the process felt smoother and much more fun. Not that the previous carvings were not fun, it's just that this one felt particularly fun. This is probably going to be the first project I paint when I can, because it deserves it. There's not sure where I am right now. I'm able to see the details fairly well, but like the petals that are inside, that are at the same, that are near the vine, the petals that are like here, we can see fairly well the petals that are outside the vines, but the ones that are overlapped with the vine disappear, and the loss of detail is kind of sad. So, but with paint, I'd be able to fill in the gaps, as it were, in detail. I don't think I'd paint the whole thing, but at least the vine and the petals of the flower and the flowers. The trunk underneath the main cylinder, that I wouldn't paint. The recessed surface, that could remain natural, but it does feel like the flowers and the petal and the flowers and the vines themselves would need paint to make it, to make them stand out more and be more pleasing to the eye. The flower has lost a petal today. That's one of the difficulty with depending on the direction, on the texture of the wood at that specific spot, the lines are harder or easier to make, and it's sometimes hard to predict when a portion is going to be easier to do than the other ones. And then I just cut too far and remove a bit of a petal from a flower that didn't deserve such violence. Yeah, the main difficulty with this project is the flowers. The to have the petals have to make the petals have enough definition. They kind of meld together a bit. It's not the end of the world, of course, but it's something to think about. This is, after all, a test of my current abilities to help me decide what kind of details I want to add in future projects. And if I want to pivot a bit more towards engraving in general, I wouldn't do solely engraving because that's would end up boring, but I could make more projects with them. And I think that's what I want to do. I will want to do. It feels a bit more, like I was saying earlier, a bit more freeing and relaxing to have draw the whole thing and then methodically remove matter as needed. So this vine here will be too thin. It's going to break if I try to make it that thin here. I'm just going to move my mark as I think about it. I think tiredness does factor here. My lines are starting to feel less deliberate and more rushed. I have to hold myself back a bit to ensure quality, which doesn't work all that well. When I'm going to be starting to make bigger projects, I eventually will have to find a way to pace myself better when carving, because in every project so far, I ended up reaching a point where I felt the need to rush to finish the project in one stream. But that's not necessarily healthy in heart rushing. So I'm going to have to choose to start to allow myself more than one recording session per project, which is something I don't really want to do. It feels more I wouldn't say healthy, and not more really it feels better planning wise to do one stream a week, one project per stream, and just edit that one project as I go. Because with the way I edit the videos, the moment there is more than one clip, it makes it less fun to. It's like if I start with two, like the chicken, I had 2 recordings to edit. Well, the progress of my editing was less noticeable, less obvious at first glance because of the way the software works. The timeline would get the scale of the timeline on the editing software's preview would change, and according to how much I'd edited, then I would be able to see my progress easily. But with 2 sets of footage, well, that measurement of how close I am to being done isn't the same and is more or less rendered worthless. And so it was a lot less motivating to edit, I think, than it was for later the next projects where I had only one recording per video I wanted to make. One of the problems with the flowers I was making here is that the petals are too small and close to one another. The circles on them are almost tangent, which makes it harder. It's not possible for me, I think, to properly define one petal from the next when they are that small and close to one another, which makes it so that I can't. The flowers don't look as much as flowers as they should in my head. Like in 2D, it's fine. The line, there's a clear line in between that's obvious, but not so much when we attempt to translate that 2D drawing into a 3D carving. Yeah, there's a lot more slippage in this portion. I think I'm going to need to stop talking until I finish this portion, because I think I've been too distracted and unfocused, and that might be the reason for me slipping that much. Alright. I'm going to try to deepen this part here. I think. No, later. I'm going to do the finishing touches later. And now I need to carve. I use this blade when not tracing, because it's got a, well, Yeah, the point that I'm using is thinner on the point portion is thinner for a longer portion, so it's easier to reach underneath, I think, than if I were using the other knife. At the beginning, I was saying that I would go as deep as possible to be able to round the vine. I don't think I will do that after all, because of the places where I slipped underneath the vine and dug too deep there. I think that if I try to round the vine's profile, that I risk cutting and removing the part that is currently holding that splinter and making the vine whole, even though there is a rather big gash underneath the vine. So I think it wouldn't be wise for me and for this specific project, considering the amount of slippage there's been, to try and go back and do this kind of reworking. I was just making sure it's still recorded with my current setup. It would have been possible, and I wouldn't have wanted that. And I think this is probably going to be about it for now until I have paint to use, because yeah, I don't think I think if I try to perfect it further, I'm just going to break it. So this is going to have to do for today, I think. No, I wanted to do grass. I wanted to do grass. So, basically, I wanted to make small, remove small bits here and there. But I don't think I'll do it. No, I won't do it. I don't think it will look good if I try to make grass, after all. So I think this is the best orientation to look at that, because here there's a lot of empty space, a lot more empty space than I thought I would have, and I kind of messed up a bit more on this side, so the surface is not as smooth. So this is its good side. And so with that, thank you all for watching, and until next time.